Henry Webb's hand froze on the mop handle. Through the frosted glass, he saw her, Amanda Blackwell, the woman who ruled 40 floors of glass and steel collapsing. Her face twisted, her arms slid off the mahogany table, and her mouth formed words that wouldn't come. Everyone else had gone home. Everyone else had ignored the signs. But Henry had seen a stroke before. He'd watched it steal his wife. Not again, never again. He dropped the mop and ran. Dear viewers, stay with me until the end of this story. Drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this journey has traveled. Now let's begin. The fluorescent lights hummed their lonely song on the 20th floor of Ashford Tower. Henry Webb pushed his cleaning cart past the glass-walled conference rooms, each one a monument to power he'd never possess. His blue uniform hung loose on his frame. He'd lost weight since Rachel died, since the hospital bills, since the world had narrowed to just him and Oliver. 11:15 p.m. The floor should have been empty, but it wasn't. Through the frosted glass of conference room C, a shadow moved jerky wrong. Henry's instincts screamed before his mind caught up. He'd learned to trust those instincts 18 months ago when Rachel had gripped his hand at dinner and said, "Something's wrong," and he'd ignored it for 3 precious minutes. 3 minutes that cost her everything. He abandoned the cart and moved toward the door. His reflection in the glass showed a man of 42 who looked 50. Grief did that, but his eyes were sharp. Rachel had trained them to be. "Henry, you have to watch for the signs." She'd told him 1,000 times back when she was Dr. Rachel Webb, stroke specialist, before the aneurysm that came without warning. The face, the arms, the speech, FAST. Most people die because nobody notices fast enough. He noticed now. Through the glass, Amanda Blackwell sat alone at the head of the conference table. CEO, legend. The woman whose name was carved in steel letters in the lobby 40 floors below. She was slumped to one side, her left arm hanging limp, her face slack on the left side like melting wax. She was trying to speak. Henry could see her mouth moving, but the words were slurred, incomprehensible. Protocol said he shouldn't enter. Protocol said executives weren't to be disturbed, especially not by the night janitor. Protocol had a lot of rules about where people like Henry belonged. Rachel's voice echoed in his head. "Screw protocol, save the life." Henry slammed the door open. Amanda's head turned too slowly, the movement sluggish and imprecise. Her right eye focused on him with recognition and terror. Her left eye seemed to stare at nothing. "Help," she managed. The word came out as hell, before her mouth betrayed her completely. Henry was already moving. He grabbed his phone with one hand while the other went to steady her head, keeping it elevated, turned slightly to the side in case she vomited. Rachel had drilled this into him during late-night conversations, when she'd come home exhausted from the hospital and needed to talk through cases. 911, what's your emergency? Stroke victim, 20th floor, Ashford Tower on West Adams Street. His voice was steady, clinical. Female, approximately 40, left-sided, facial droop, left arm paralysis, severe speech impairment. Symptoms started within the last 10 minutes based on the progression I'm observing. Sir, are you a medical professional? No, my wife was a neurologist. I know what I'm seeing. Amanda's good hand clutched at his sleeve. Her eyes were wide, terrified, but also calculating. Even now, even like this, her mind was working. She was trying to tell him something. Don't try to talk, Henry said gently. Help is coming. You're going to be okay. The 911 operator was saying something about an ambulance, about estimated time of arrival, 7 minutes. 7 minutes could mean the difference between recovery and permanent disability, between life and death. Is she breathing normally? Henry watched Amanda's chest. Yes, rapid but steady. Any chest pain can she indicate? Ma'am, can you squeeze my hand if you have chest pain? Henry held out his hand. Amanda's right hand gripped it hard, then released. Once. No. No chest pain, Henry reported, but her pupils are unequal. Right is normal, Left is slightly dilated. There was a pause on the line. Sir, stay with her. Keep her calm. Paramedics are 3 minutes out. 3 minutes. Henry had learned the value of 3 minutes in the worst possible way. He pulled off his jacket and folded it under Amanda's head, adjusting her position to keep the airway clear. Her breathing was getting more labored. Panic was setting in. He could see it in her eyes. Amanda. He used her first name without thinking. Look at me. You're having a stroke, but we caught it early. Very early. The paramedics are almost here. I need you to stay calm. Keep breathing slowly. Can you do that? She tried to nod. The motion was weak, but it was there. Good. That's good. I'm Henry. I clean this floor every night. You probably never noticed me, but that's okay. I notice things. I noticed you. Her right hand found his again. This time she held on. My wife was Dr. Rachel Webb. She worked at Mercy General. She taught me everything about strokes because she said everyone should know. She said, his voice caught. She said knowledge saves lives. So I'm going to save yours. In the distance, sirens wailed. Amanda's grip tightened. Her mouth was trying to form words again. This time, Henry could make them out. Thank you. Save your energy, he said. You're going to need it. The paramedics burst through the door. 4 minutes later, a man and a woman, both moving with practiced efficiency. Henry gave them the rundown in 30 seconds flat, timeline symptoms. Pupil response, breathing pattern, patient history as far as he knew it. The female paramedic looked at him with surprise. You sure you're not medical? Very sure, Henry said, but my wife was. She trained you well. The paramedic turned to her partner. Get the gurney. We're doing a code stroke protocol. This is a solid candidate for intervention if we move fast. They had Amanda on the stretcher in 90 seconds. As they wheeled her toward the elevator, she reached out with her good hand and grasping for Henry. I'm right here, he said, walking alongside the gurney. The male paramedic glanced at him. You coming with us? Henry hesitated. Oliver was home with Mrs. Chen from 4B who watched him on Henry's late shifts. Protocol said he should finish his rounds. Protocol said he'd done enough. Rachel's voice, stay with her. Yes, Henry said, I'm coming. The ER at Northwestern Memorial was chaos contained in white tile and fluorescent light. Henry sat in the waiting room, his cleaning uniform drawing stares from the well-dressed people who'd arrived after Amanda's admission. He'd called Mrs. Chen, explained he'd be late. She'd been understanding, she always was. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, a doctor emerged, young Indian with kind eyes and exhaustion etched in every line of her face. Family of Amanda Blackwell. Henry stood. I'm not family. I'm the one who called it in. The doctor studied him, the janitor who gave the paramedics a perfect FAST assessment and stroke timeline. Yes, ma'am. You saved her life. The doctor extended her hand. Dr. Patel, interventional neurologist. We performed a thrombectomy, pulled the clot. She's stable. If you'd waited even 5 more minutes to call, the damage would have been catastrophic. As it is, she'll need rehab, but we're looking at excellent recovery odds. Henry felt his knees go weak. He sat down hard on the plastic chair. She's going to be okay. Because of you? Yes. Dr. Patel sat beside him. Who taught you to recognize stroke symptoms? That precisely? My wife, Dr. Rachel Webb. She was a stroke specialist at Mercy General. She died 18 months ago. Cerebral aneurysm. Happened so fast there was nothing anyone could do. Dr. Patel's expression softened. I'm sorry, but she left you with a gift, the knowledge to save someone else. Henry nodded, unable to speak around the lump in his throat. Ms. Blackwell is asking for you, Dr. Patel said. Her speech is still impaired, but she's insistent. Would you like to see her? Ma'am. The ICU was quiet machines beeping in steady rhythm. Amanda lay in the bed, smaller, somehow more human than the titanium CEO who ruled the skyline. Her left side was still weak. Henry could see it in the way she lay, but her eyes were clear and focused. When she saw him, tears spilled down her cheeks. "Hey," Henry said, softly pulling up a chair. "You're tough. Dr. Patel says you're going to make a full recovery." "You—" Her speech was slurred but comprehensible. "Saved me. I just did what needed doing." "No." She shook her head with obvious effort. "Everyone else gone. Only you saw." It was true. The entire executive floor had emptied by 9 p.m. She'd been alone in that conference room, probably working late as always. If Henry hadn't been there, if he hadn't looked, if he hadn't known— "Why were you there so late?" he asked gently. "Board meeting tomorrow." She closed her eyes. Always working. Never stop. "Well, you're going to stop now," Henry said. "Doctor's orders." A weak smile touched her lips. "You have family?" "A son, Oliver. He's 6. "Your wife gone. Same thing that almost took you, but hers was different, faster, no warning." Amanda's good hand reached out. Henry took it. "I'm sorry," she whispered. They sat in silence, two strangers connected by crisis, until a nurse came to check vitals, and Henry realized it was 4 in the morning. He had to get home to Oliver. "I should go," he said, standing. Amanda's grip tightened. Name, Henry Webb. "Henry," she struggled with the words, determined to say them clearly. "Thank you for my life." "You're welcome, Ms. Blackwell." "Amanda," she insisted. "Please." Henry smiled. "Amanda, then. Get some rest." He was at the door when she called out, her voice stronger than before. "Henry, where do you live?" He told her. She nodded, filing it away with that CEO brain that never quite stopped working. Henry didn't think anything of it. He should have. The next morning, Henry woke to Oliver jumping on his bed at 7 a.m., all 6-year-old energy and questions. "Daddy, did you save someone last night? Mrs. Chen said you saved someone." Henry pulled his son into a hug. "I helped someone who was sick, buddy, like how Mommy used to help people." Oliver's face grew serious, the expression he wore when he talked about Rachel. "Did you use Mommy's special knowledge?" "I did." "Then Mommy helped too from heaven." Henry's throat tightened. "Yeah, Ollie, she did." They made pancakes for breakfast. Oliver's specialty was adding way too many chocolate chips, and Henry tried to pretend the previous night was just another shift, just another part of the invisible life he led. He was wrong about that too. At 11 a.m., someone knocked on their apartment door. Henry opened it to find a woman in an expensive suit, holding a massive bouquet of flowers and looking completely out of place in the faded hallway of their building. "Mr. Webb, I'm Jennifer Cole, Ms. Blackwell's executive assistant. She wanted me to deliver these personally and to give you this." She handed him an envelope along with the flowers. Inside was a card in shaky but determined handwriting. "Thank you will never be enough. Please let me try anyway, Amanda." And a check. Henry stared at the amount, certain there was a mistake. 5 figures, more money than he made in 6 months. "I can't accept this," he said immediately. Jennifer smiled. Ms. Blackwell anticipated that response. She said to tell you it's not payment, it's gratitude, and if you refuse, she'll just donate it to stroke research in your wife's name instead. Henry looked down at the check, then at Oliver, who was peeking around his leg at the fancy lady. "Tell her thank you," he said finally. "But I don't need this." "She thought you might say that too," Jennifer said, "which is why she also wanted me to deliver this invitation." She handed him another envelope. "Lunch tomorrow. She'd like to meet your son and thank you properly. The address is inside. It's nothing fancy," she insisted on that. "Just a conversation between 2 people." Henry should have said no, should have kept his world separate from hers, should have known better, but Oliver was tugging on his shirt, asking, "Who's that daddy?" And Rachel's voice whispered in his memory, "Say yes to life, Henry, even when it's scary." Tell her we'll be there, Henry said. Jennifer's smile widened. Excellent, 1 p.m. tomorrow, casual dress. After she left, Oliver demanded to know everything. Henry explained as best he could how he'd helped a sick lady, how she wanted to say thank you. Is she nice? Oliver asked. Henry thought about Amanda's eyes in the hospital, the way she'd gripped his hand, the gratitude and fear and strength all mixed together. Yeah, Ollie, he said. I think she is. The diner was called Stella's, tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore on a side street Henry passed every day on his way to work. He'd never been inside, too expensive for his budget, but Oliver pressed his nose against the window and declared it fancy but not too fancy. Amanda was already in a booth when they arrived, and Henry almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the power suit and perfect composure. She wore jeans and a soft sweater, her hair down minimal makeup. Her left side still showed weakness, a slight droop to her mouth, her left arm moving more carefully than her right, but she stood when she saw them, a genuine smile breaking across her face. Henry, she said, her speech still slightly slurred but vastly improved from the hospital. Thank you for coming. Amanda, this is my son Oliver. Oliver stepped forward with the serious handshake Henry had taught him. It's nice to meet you, ma'am. Daddy says you were very sick, but you're getting better. Amanda's eyes misted. That's right, and your daddy is the reason I'm here. They slid into the booth, Oliver between them, already studying the menu with intense concentration. A waitress appeared, and they ordered pancakes for Oliver with extra chocolate chips, a club sandwich for Amanda, coffee and eggs for Henry. How are you feeling? Henry asked once the waitress left. Better every day. The doctors are amazed by the recovery. They say I'm extremely lucky. She looked directly at him. But it wasn't luck, was it? Right place, right time. Don't diminish what you did. Her voice was firm despite the slur. Everyone else had gone home, my entire executive team, people I've worked with for years, and not one of them checked on me. But you did. A man I'd never even noticed before. Henry shifted uncomfortably. I clean your floors every night. Not exactly invisible work, just overlooked. I overlooked you, Amanda said quietly. I overlooked a lot of things. My health, the people around me, what actually matters. She turned to Oliver. Your daddy told me about your mommy, that she was a doctor. Oliver nodded, his smile fading slightly. She helped people with sick brains. Then her brain got sick and she went to heaven. I'm sorry, sweetheart. It's okay. She taught Daddy how to help people before she left. That's what Daddy says. So she's still helping people just from far away. Amanda had to look away, blinking rapidly. When she looked back, there was something raw in her expression. Your daddy is right, and your mommy's knowledge saved my life. The food arrived, and they ate, the conversation flowing more easily than Henry had expected. Oliver chattered about school, about his best friend Marcus, about the drawing he made of their cat. They didn't have a cat, but in Oliver's world, they should. Amanda listened with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at his jokes. You're good with kids, Henry observed. I wanted them once, Amanda said softly, but the company always came first. Then suddenly I was 40 and alone in a conference room having a stroke. She met Henry's eyes. Makes you reconsider priorities. What were you working on that night, if you don't mind my asking? A merger. Multi-million-dollar deal. I was reviewing documents for the board meeting, trying to find a problem with the terms because something felt off. She laughed without humor. Turns out the problem was in my brain, not the contract. Did you ever figure out what felt off? Amanda paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. No, actually I didn't. Everything happened so fast after you found me. Maybe you should look again. She studied him curiously. You have good instincts, don't you? Rachel used to say, I notice things other people miss. Comes from being invisible, I guess. You see a lot when nobody knows you're watching. Tell me about her, Amanda said. Your wife." So Henry did. He told her about Rachel's brilliant mind, her terrible jokes, the way she'd dance in the kitchen while making coffee, about the night she collapsed, how fast it happened, how helpless he'd felt, about Oliver's questions that had no good answers about learning to be enough for a boy who missed his mother. Amanda listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "She'd be proud of you," she said, "for what you did for me, for how you're raising Oliver." "I hope so." Oliver, who'd been quietly destroying his pancakes, looked up. Daddy learned about sick people from Mommy before she went to heaven. That's how he knew you needed help. The simple truth of it hung in the air between them. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "She gave you a gift," she whispered, "and you used it to save me." They stayed for 2 hours talking about grief and recovery, about single parenthood and corporate loneliness, about the strange twist of fate that had brought a CEO and a janitor together in the most unlikely friendship. When they finally left, Amanda hugged Oliver, then Henry. She held on a little longer than necessary. "Thank you," she said again, "for everything." "Thank you for lunch," Henry replied, "and for wanting to know us. I'd like to do this again, if that's okay." Henry thought about protocol, about boundaries, about all the reasons this shouldn't work. Then he looked at Oliver's happy face and remembered Rachel's words. "Say yes to life." "We'd like that," he said. As they walked home, Oliver slipped his hand into Henry's. "Daddy, I think Mommy sent Amanda to us." "Why do you think that, buddy?" "Because Amanda was sad and alone like us. And now we can all be sad and alone together, which means nobody's really alone anymore." 6-year-old wisdom. Henry squeezed his son's hand and wondered if Oliver might be right. Behind them, they didn't see Amanda watching from the diner window, her phone pressed to her ear, her expression troubled. "Dr. Chen," she was saying, "I need you to pull my medical records, all of them. Something isn't right." The first cracks in the foundation were beginning to show, but Henry and Amanda didn't know yet how deep they ran or how much danger was still ahead. They would learn soon enough. Dr. Sarah Chen arrived at Amanda's penthouse apartment 3 days later with a thick file folder and an expression that made Amanda's stomach drop. They'd known each other since medical school. Sarah had been Rachel Webb's closest friend and colleague at Mercy General, and the grief of losing Rachel still shadowed both their faces when they spoke of her. "Tell me what you found," Amanda said, gesturing Sarah to the leather sofa that overlooked the Chicago skyline. Sarah didn't sit. She opened the folder and spread documents across the glass coffee table with the precision of a surgeon laying out instruments. "Your medical records show regular checkups for the past 3 years with Dr. Marcus Patterson, clean bills of health, blood pressure slightly elevated but manageable, cholesterol within normal range, no red flags." But these records are falsified." Sarah pulled out a second set of papers. "I called in a favor at Northwestern, got your actual test results from the past 6 months. Amanda, your blood pressure has been dangerously high. Your cholesterol is through the roof. There are indicators here of multiple transient ischemic attacks, mini-strokes that should have been caught and treated months ago." The room tilted. Amanda sat down hard. "How is that possible? Patterson sees me every month." "Patterson has been lying to you." Sarah's voice was cold, clinical. "The question is why?" Amanda's mind raced through possibilities, each darker than the last. "Wilson Hart recommended Patterson to me 2 years ago, said he was the best private physician in Chicago." "Wilson Hart, your deputy CEO. The man who stands to inherit my position if I'm incapacitated." Amanda's hands shook as she reached for her phone. "Sarah, I need you to do something for me. Don't tell anyone about this, not yet." "Amanda, you need immediate treatment, real treatment." "I know, and I'll get it from you quietly. But if Wilson finds out, I'm on to him if Patterson warns him." She stopped, the implications crystallizing. They tried to kill me, not with a gun or poison, with neglect, with falsified records. If Henry hadn't been there that night, you'd be dead or permanently disabled and Wilson would be CEO. Sarah finished grimly. This is criminal conspiracy, which is why we need proof before we move. Amanda stood pacing despite the lingering weakness in her left leg. Can you treat me without it showing up in any official records? I can manage your condition, yes, but Amanda, this is dangerous. If they realize you're recovering, that you know, they won't. I'll keep going to Patterson's appointments. I'll play weak. Meanwhile, you dig deeper. Find out how deep this goes. Sarah studied her friend with a mixture of admiration and concern. Rachel would tell you to go to the police right now. Rachel would tell me to gather irrefutable evidence first. Amanda met Sarah's eyes. She always said the system fails when the proof isn't airtight. Help me make it airtight. After a long moment, Sarah nodded. I'll need blood samples, current imaging, and Amanda, you need someone you trust watching your back. Amanda thought of Henry, of his careful observation, his instinct for seeing what others missed. I might know someone. Henry was mopping the 18th floor when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, telemarketer probably, but something made him pick up. Henry, it's Amanda. I'm sorry to call you at work, but I need to ask you something. Can we meet? The urgency in her voice raised every alarm he had. Are you okay? Is it another stroke? No, nothing like that, but it's important. Tomorrow, same diner. I have to pick up Oliver from school at 3. Bring him, please, Henry. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. After he hung up, Henry stood in the empty hallway, unease crawling up his spine. He'd learned to trust that feeling. Rachel had taught him that too. The body knows danger before the mind does. The next afternoon, Amanda was already in their booth at Stella's. But this time she wasn't alone. A striking woman in her 50s sat across from her, professional, but warm with tired eyes that reminded Henry of Rachel after a long shift. Henry Oliver, this is Dr. Sarah Chen. She was your mother's colleague and friend, Amanda said to Oliver, who'd frozen in recognition of Rachel's name. You knew Mommy? Oliver asked, sliding into the booth. Sarah's smile was genuine and sad. I did, sweetheart. She was brilliant and kind, and I miss her very much. Oliver nodded solemnly. Me too. Henry sat, his protective instincts on high alert. What's going on, Amanda? Amanda and Sarah exchanged glances. Then Amanda leaned forward, her voice low. What I'm about to tell you stays between us. I need your word, Henry. You have it. My doctor has been falsifying my medical records. For months, maybe longer. The stroke I had wasn't random. It was the result of untreated conditions he deliberately hid from me. Henry felt the blood drain from his face. Why would he do that? Because someone's paying him to, Sarah said bluntly. We think it's Wilson Hart, Amanda's deputy. He stands to gain everything if she's removed from power. That's attempted murder, Henry said. That's exactly what it is, Amanda agreed. But we need proof. Real proof. And I need someone I can trust absolutely. Someone who notices things others don't. Henry looked at Oliver, who was studiously coloring on the kids' menu the waitress had brought. I'm a janitor, Amanda, not an investigator. You're a man who saved my life because you paid attention when everyone else looked away, Amanda said. That's exactly what I need. Eyes and ears where mine can't be. What are you asking me to do? Amanda pulled out a photograph, a man in his 60s, silver-haired, expensive suit. This is Dr. Marcus Patterson. He has an office on the 35th floor of Ashford Tower. I need you to watch him. See who he meets with, who he calls. If you can get into his office during your cleaning rounds, you want me to spy on him. I want you to help me stay alive, Amanda said quietly. Because if Wilson and Patterson realize I'm onto them, they'll try again, and next time you might not be there to save me. Sarah leaned forward. Henry, I knew Rachel. She'd want this man stopped. How many other patients is Patterson manipulating? How many other people are dying because of his fraud? The mention of Rachel hit home. Henry thought of all the patients she'd fought to save the fury she'd had for anyone who put profit over people. "What exactly do you need me to find?" he asked. Relief flooded Amanda's face. Patient files, financial records, anything connecting Patterson to Wilson or showing a pattern of falsified diagnoses. His office should be empty after 8 p.m. "And if I get caught?" "You won't," Amanda said. "You're invisible. Remember, nobody notices the janitor." It was true, and the truth of it stung, but Henry had learned to use his invisibility as a tool. People said things around him they'd never say to each other, did things they thought no one saw. "I'll do it," he said, "but not for you, for all the people like Rachel who died fighting people like Patterson." Amanda reached across the table and gripped his hand. "Thank you." Oliver looked up from his coloring. "Are you helping Amanda catch bad guys, Daddy?" Henry ruffled his son's hair. "Something like that, buddy. Like a superhero. More like a detective." Oliver's eyes lit up. "Cool. If only it were that simple," Henry thought, but he'd made his choice. Now he had to see it through. Chunk. 3 nights later, Henry pushed his cleaning cart onto the 35th floor at 8:47 p.m. Patterson's office was at the end of the hall corner suite naturally. Through the frosted glass door, Henry could see the lights were off. He'd thought this through carefully. He cleaned this floor every Thursday anyway. If anyone asked, he was just doing his job. The key was to look like he belonged, move with purpose, act bored. The office door was locked, but Henry had copies of the master keys. All the night custodians did. His hands were sweating as he unlocked the door and slipped inside. Patterson's office was everything Henry expected: leather furniture, medical degrees on the wall, a desk that probably cost more than Henry made in a year. He moved to the filing cabinets first, pulling out his phone to photograph anything relevant. The first drawer was patient files alphabetized. He found Amanda's, quickly thin, too thin for someone supposedly under regular care. He photographed every page. The record showed exactly what Sarah had said: normal results, clean bills of health. Nothing to indicate the brewing catastrophe. But underneath Amanda's file was another one. Same name, but marked actual private. Henry's pulse hammered as he opened it. The real results were damning. High blood pressure readings ignored. Cholesterol levels that should have triggered immediate intervention. Notes in Patterson's handwriting. Patient showing signs of TIAA. Withholding diagnosis per WH instruction. Increasing stress recommended. WH Wilson heart. Henry photographed everything, his hands shaking with rage. This wasn't just negligence. It was premeditated murder disguised as medicine. He was replacing the files when he heard voices in the hallway. "Need to accelerate the timeline. She's recovering too fast." Henry's blood froze. That was Patterson's voice, and it was getting closer. He looked around frantically. The desk was too open, the bathroom too obvious. Behind the leather sofa, it was his only chance. Henry ducked behind it just as the office door opened and the lights flicked on. "I told you, Wilson, the stroke should have done it." Patterson sounded defensive. "How was I supposed to know some janitor would be there? The janitor who's now having cozy lunches with her." Wilson Hart's voice was smooth, cultured, and cold as ice. "Do you know what that looks like? She's planning something." "She doesn't know anything. I've seen her at the office. She's still weak, still struggling. The stroke did damage." "Not enough damage." Footsteps crossed to the desk. Henry pressed himself against the wall behind the sofa, barely breathing. "We've invested too much in this to fail now. The board meeting is in 2 weeks. If she's still CEO, if she pushes through that merger investigation, what do you want me to do? Give her another stroke. That's not how it works." "Find a way," Wilson said flatly. "Adjust her medication, trigger another episode. I don't care how you do it, Marcus, but she needs to be out of commission before that board meeting. Permanently. That's murder. That's $12 million in offshore accounts, and the CEO position for me. It's also you not going to prison for medical fraud. Or have you forgotten our arrangement? Silence. Then Patterson, quieter. I'll handle it. Another month of the current regimen should trigger a catastrophic event. 2 weeks, Marcus, not a month. 2 weeks. That's too fast. It'll look suspicious. Make it look like stress. She's been working herself to death for years. Everyone knows that. One more stroke, this time fatal, and it's just the tragic end of a woman who wouldn't slow down. Wilson's footsteps move toward the door, and Marcus makes sure there's no one around to save her this time. No heroic janitors, no witnesses. The door closed. Patterson let out a long breath, then picked up his desk phone. Henry's phone, still in his hand, vibrated. He'd forgotten to silence it. The sound was deafening in the quiet office. Patterson spun around. Who's there? Henry had seconds to decide. Hide and hope Patterson didn't find him, or run and reveal himself. He chose the third option, the one Rachel had taught him when cornered by aggressive family members in the hospital. He stood up, mop in hand, looking confused. Sorry, sir. Didn't mean to startle you, just cleaning behind the furniture. Patterson's face went from alarm to irritation. You're the janitor. Yes, sir. Henry Webb. I clean this floor every Thursday. Henry kept his expression blank, his voice deferential. Just another invisible worker. How long have you been in here? Just got here, sir. I knocked, but nobody answered, so I let myself in. I can come back if you're busy. Patterson studied him, suspicion warring with the ingrained dismissal people like him had for people like Henry. Did you hear anything? Hear anything? No, sir. I had my headphones in. Henry tapped his ear where his earbuds usually sat during work. He wasn't wearing them now, but Patterson wouldn't notice that. He never really looked at Henry at all. Fine, finish quickly and get out. Yes, sir. Patterson grabbed some files from his desk and left, locking the door behind him. Henry waited until the footsteps faded, then sagged against the sofa, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might burst. 2 weeks. They were going to kill Amanda in 2 weeks. He had to tell her, had to warn her, but first he needed to get out of this building before Patterson or Wilson realized he'd heard everything. Henry pocketed his phone with its damning photographs and wheeled his cart into the hallway, forcing himself to move at a normal pace, to be invisible again. Just the janitor cleaning up other people's messes. He'd never been so grateful to be overlooked in his life. Amanda's penthouse felt different in the middle of the night. Henry had texted her from the parking lot, "Emergency, need to see you now," and she'd given him the address without question. Now he sat in her living room, Oliver asleep on his shoulder, while Amanda and Sarah listened to his story. 2 weeks, Amanda repeated, her voice hollow. They're planning to kill me in 2 weeks. We have proof now, Henry said, pulling out his phone. Photos of the files, and I recorded part of their conversation. He'd started the recording app when he'd heard them coming, a desperate gambit that had paid off. Sarah took his phone, scrolling through the images, her expression growing darker. This is enough for the FBI. Medical fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, financial crimes. No. Amanda stood abruptly, pacing. Not yet. Amanda, they just threatened your life, Sarah said. And if we go to the authorities now, Wilson will lawyer up. He'll claim he was speaking hypothetically. Patterson will say the second file was a mistake, that he was being cautious. Their money and power will insulate them while I'm left looking paranoid and weak. So what do you want to do? Henry asked. Amanda turned to face them, and Henry saw the CEO, again the woman who'd built an empire, who'd survived a stroke and come back fighting. We make them think they've won. I play weak. I let Patterson adjust my medication, but Sarah switches it out for placebos. We document everything. And at the board meeting, when Wilson thinks he's about to take control, we expose everything. That's incredibly dangerous, Sarah said. Living is dangerous when someone wants you dead, Amanda shot back. At least this way we control the narrative. Henry thought of Rachel, of the calculated risks she'd taken in the ER, of her fierce commitment to doing things right even when it was hard. You need someone watching you every minute. If they try something before the board meeting, I know. Amanda looked at him. Henry, I'm going to ask something unreasonable. Move in here, you and Oliver, just for the 2 weeks. My guest rooms are empty anyway, and I need someone I trust. Someone who'll notice if something's wrong. Henry's first instinct was to refuse. But then he thought about the concrete block apartment, about Oliver's tiny room, about the constant struggle to make rent. Thought about Amanda alone in this penthouse waiting for her killers to strike. Oliver has school, he said. There's an excellent school 3 blocks from here. I'll cover the costs. Amanda, please, her voice cracked. I'm scared, Henry. I don't want to die, and I trust you more than anyone else in my life right now. How pathetic is that I've known you for 3 weeks, and you're the only person I'd bet my life on. Oliver stirred against Henry's shoulder, mumbling in his sleep. Henry thought about what Rachel would do. She'd never walked away from someone in need, never let fear stop her from doing the right thing. Okay, he said, we'll stay, but only until this is over. Relief flooded Amanda's face. Thank you. Sarah was already making plans, pulling out prescription pads. I'll prepare the placebos. Amanda, you need to maintain all your regular appointments with Patterson. Act like nothing's changed. Can you do that? I spent 20 years in boardrooms lying to people who wanted to destroy me, Amanda said. I can handle Marcus Patterson. They worked out the details until nearly 3 a.m., the medication switches, the documentation protocol, the plan for the board meeting. Henry would continue his night shifts at Ashford Tower, watching and listening. Sarah would monitor Amanda's real health, and Amanda would play the victim, weak and unsuspecting. When Sarah finally left, Amanda showed Henry and Oliver to the guest suite. It was bigger than their entire apartment, with views of the city that took Henry's breath away. Are you sure about this? Amanda asked quietly, watching Oliver burrow into the massive bed. No, Henry admitted, but Rachel taught me that being sure is overrated. Sometimes you just have to do what's right and trust it'll work out. She sounds like she was an amazing woman. She was. Henry looked at Amanda, seeing past the CEO to the frightened person underneath. You are too, you know, taking them on like this. Most people would just run. I tried running once, from my family, from expectations, from everything. That's how I ended up building this empire, running so hard, I forgot what I was running toward. She smiled sadly. Then I had a stroke, and the janitor noticed when nobody else did. Kind of makes you reconsider what's important. What is important? Henry asked. Amanda looked at Oliver sleeping peacefully in his borrowed bed. Being noticed. Being seen. Having someone who'd drop everything to save your life, not because you're powerful or rich, but because you're human and you need help. She said goodnight and left Henry standing in the unfamiliar luxury, wondering what Rachel would think of all this. Probably she'd laugh at the absurdity. Her husband, the janitor, moved into a penthouse helping a CEO take down a conspiracy, but she'd also be proud. He knew that much. Daddy, Oliver's sleepy voice came from the bed. Is Amanda going to be okay? Henry went to his son, smoothing his hair back. We're going to make sure she is, buddy. Good, I like her. She's sad like us, but she's brave too. Out of the mouths of babes, Henry thought. Get some sleep, Ollie. But Henry stood at the window long after Oliver's breathing evened out, watching the city lights, thinking about invisible people and the power they held when someone finally paid attention. 2 weeks to bring down a conspiracy, 2 weeks to save a life. He'd seen Rachel do the impossible in less time. Now it was his turn. The first week passed in a strange rhythm of normalcy and danger. Oliver adapted to his new school with the resilience of childhood, making friends and coming home each day with stories about the fancy building where they were staying. Amanda left for the office each morning in her tailored suits, playing the part of recovering CEO. while Sarah's placebos replaced Patterson's poison, and Henry worked his night shifts at Ashford Tower, invisible as always, watching and listening. It was on the 5th night that he found the second file. He'd returned to Patterson's office under the guise of a deep clean, his master key granting him access to the locked cabinets he hadn't been able to search thoroughly before. This time he went deeper past the patient files to the financial records Patterson kept in a safe behind a framed medical degree. The safe wasn't locked arrogance or carelessness. Henry couldn't tell. Inside were bank statements, wire transfer records, and a ledger written in Patterson's precise hand. Henry photographed everything, his stomach turning as he recognized pattern after pattern. Amanda wasn't the first. She wasn't even the 5th. Over the past 3 years, Patterson had systematically falsified records for 12 patients, 12 wealthy, powerful people whose deaths or incapacitation had benefited someone close to them. A real estate mogul whose son inherited the company after an unexpected heart attack. A tech CEO who died of complications from diabetes while her CFO took over. A philanthropist whose stroke left her unable to contest her nephew's control of her foundation. Henry's hands shook as he took photo after photo. This wasn't just about Amanda. This was a murder-for-hire scheme disguised as medical practice, and Patterson was the weapon of choice for people who wanted power without the mess of obvious violence. He was so focused on documenting the evidence that he almost missed the footsteps in the hallway. Almost. Henry shoved the ledger back into the safe and was closing the cabinet when the door opened, but this time it wasn't Patterson. Wilson Hart stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. Henry Webb, the heroic janitor, working late. Henry kept his face neutral, his posture deferential. "Yes, sir, deep cleaning rotation this week. In Dr. Patterson's private office at 10:30 at night. It's on my schedule, sir." Henry pulled out his phone, showing the work order he'd created specifically for this purpose. "I can come back if—" "No need." Wilson stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The click of the lock was soft but definitive. "Actually, I've been wanting to talk to you." Every instinct Henry had screamed danger. He positioned himself near the desk, calculating distances to the door, to potential weapons, to any way out. "About what, sir?" "About Amanda Blackwell, about the night you saved her life." Wilson settled into Patterson's desk chair, completely at ease. "You're quite the hero. The papers called you that, didn't they, when the story leaked?" Henry hadn't known about any news story. He kept his expression blank. "I just did what anyone would do." "But that's not true, is it? You did what a man trained by a stroke specialist would do. Your late wife, wasn't it? Dr. Rachel Webb." Wilson pulled up something on his phone. "Brilliant neurologist, died of a cerebral aneurysm at 38. Tragic." The casual mention of Rachel made Henry's jaw clench. "Yes, sir. And now you're living in Amanda's penthouse, you and your son. Quite the upgrade from that apartment in Bridgeport." The knowledge was meant to intimidate, to show how much Wilson knew, how much control he had. Henry had seen Rachel handle bullies in the hospital, administrators who tried to override her medical judgment, pharmaceutical reps who pushed dangerous drugs, insurance adjusters who denied care. She'd taught him that bullies feed on fear. "Ms. Blackwell was kind enough to offer us a place to stay while she recovers," Henry said evenly. "She's been generous." "I'm sure she has." Wilson stood, moving closer. He was taller than Henry, broader, used to using his physical presence to dominate. "Here's what concerns me, Henry. Amanda's recovery seems unusually robust. Despite Dr. Patterson's prognosis that she'd need months of rehabilitation, she's already back at the office, attending meetings, making decisions. That's good news, isn't it?" "It would be if it were real." Wilson's smile didn't reach his eyes. "But I think something else is happening. I think someone's interfering with her treatment, switching her medications perhaps, giving her different medical advice." Henry's pulse hammered, but he kept his voice steady. "I wouldn't know anything about that, sir. I'm just a janitor. Just a janitor who happens to be living with her, who happens to be in Dr. Patterson's office after hours, who happens to have his phone out." Wilson gestured to the phone still in Henry's hand. Taking photos of my work schedule, Henry said, turning the phone to show the screen. He'd switched away from the camera the moment he'd heard footsteps, another lesson from Rachel about always having an exit strategy. Wilson studied him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. "You're good, better than I expected. Amanda chose well." "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do, and that's fine. Everyone needs allies." Wilson moved to the door, unlocking it. "Here's some advice, Henry, from one pragmatist to another. Amanda Blackwell is a sinking ship. She's been running herself into the ground for years, and that stroke was just the beginning. The board knows it. The shareholders know it. In 2 weeks, when she collapses again, and she will collapse, her health is too fragile. I'll be CEO. And when that happens, I'll remember who was smart enough to step aside. Is that a threat? It's an opportunity." Wilson opened the door. "You seem like a good father. Oliver isn't at 6 years old, just started at Lincoln Elementary. You want what's best for him. I respect that, so I'm offering you a choice. Step away from Amanda, go back to your life, and when I'm CEO, I'll make sure you're taken care of. A better job, better pay, better future for your son. And if I don't," Wilson's smile turned cold, "then you'll go down with her, and Oliver will lose another parent. Think about it." He left, his footsteps echoing down the empty hallway. Henry stood in the office, his heart racing, his mind spinning. Wilson knew, maybe not everything, but enough. The conspiracy was bigger than they'd thought, more dangerous, more willing to threaten a 6-year-old child to maintain control. He pulled out his phone and texted Amanda, "We need to talk. Now." Amanda's penthouse was dark except for a single lamp in the living room. She sat on the sofa in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, looking more human than Henry had ever seen her. Sarah was there too, a glass of wine in hand, tension written across her face. "Wilson knows," Henry said without preamble. "He doesn't have proof, but he knows we're onto him." Amanda's face went pale. What did he say? Henry recounted the conversation, watching Amanda's expression shift from fear to fury. When he got to the part about Oliver, Sarah put down her wine glass hard enough to crack. "He threatened a child," Sarah said flatly. "That's it. We call the FBI right now." "With what evidence?" Amanda stood pacing. "Everything we have is circumstantial. Wilson having a conversation with Henry doesn't prove conspiracy. The files Henry photographed could be dismissed as confidential patient records improperly obtained." "The ledger," Henry said. "Patterson's handwritten ledger showing 12 victims, payments, transfers, written in medical shorthand that Patterson can claim is legitimate record-keeping." Amanda interrupted. "We need him to implicate himself. We need a confession, something undeniable." "You're talking about wearing a wire," Sarah said. "Confronting Patterson directly. Amanda, that's insane." "It's the only way." Amanda turned to Henry. "You said Patterson has an appointment with me tomorrow. Routine checkup. What if I went in there and pushed him, made him think I know something, see how he reacts?" "Too dangerous," Henry said immediately. "If he panics, if he gives you something on the spot, I'll have Sarah test everything before I take it." "Henry, we're running out of time. The board meeting is in 8 days. Wilson's already positioning himself. If we don't move now, we lose everything." The frustration in her voice was palpable. Henry understood it. He'd felt the same helplessness watching Rachel fight systems designed to defeat her, watching her exhaust herself, trying to save everyone. "There's another way," he said slowly. "Patterson thinks I'm just a janitor. He dismissed me tonight, same as he always does. What if I keep playing that role? Keep cleaning his office, keep listening? If Wilson's pushing Patterson to accelerate the timeline, they'll have to communicate, and I'll be there when they do." "You mean spy on them," Amanda said. "I mean do my job while they incriminate themselves." Henry pulled out his phone, showing them the voice recording app. "I've been recording everything since Wilson's conversation tonight. It's not enough yet, but give me a few more nights." "A few more nights of you risking your life," Sarah interjected. "What happens when they figure out you're not just a janitor, when Wilson makes good on his threat. Henry thought of Oliver asleep in the guest room, dreaming of his new school and new friends, thought of the promise he'd made to Rachel to keep their son safe. But he also thought of the 12 names in Patterson's ledger of all the people who'd died because someone wanted power and money more than they wanted human life. Rachel used to say that some fights choose you, he said quietly. You don't get to walk away just because they're dangerous. You show up, you do the work, you save who you can save. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. I'm not worth this, Henry. I'm not worth risking your son's father. You're wrong. Henry met her gaze steadily. This isn't about you anymore. It's about Patterson and Wilson and everyone like them who thinks some lives matter less than others. It's about making sure they can't do this to anyone else. The room fell silent. Then Sarah spoke, her voice heavy with resignation and respect. Rachel would be proud of you and furious. She always was when people she loved put themselves in danger. Did she ever stop them? Henry asked. Never. She just made sure they were as protected as possible. Sarah stood, moving to her medical bag. If you're going through with this, we do it smart. I'll give you something to carry, a fast-acting emergency medication in case Patterson tries anything. And Amanda wears a panic button. The moment anything feels wrong, we abort. Agreed, Amanda said. She looked at Henry with something like wonder. Why are you doing this? Really, you could take Oliver and disappear. Wilson doesn't know where you actually live. You could be gone before they ever found you. Henry thought about his answer, about invisible people and the power they held when someone finally saw them, about Rachel and the legacy she'd left him, about Oliver learning what it meant to be brave. Because you noticed me, he said simply. When I saved your life, you didn't just say thank you and forget about me. You saw me. You invited Oliver and me to lunch. You asked about Rachel. You treated us like people who mattered. He paused. Nobody's done that in a long time. So yeah, I'm doing this because that's what you do for people who see you. Amanda crossed the room and hugged him, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world. Thank you, she whispered, child, for everything. Over her shoulder, Henry saw Sarah watching them, with an expression he couldn't quite read. Later, after they'd planned out the next steps and Sarah had left, she pulled Henry aside in the hallway. Be careful with her, Sarah said quietly. What do you mean? Amanda's been alone for a long time. She's brilliant and powerful and completely isolated. And you're showing her what connection looks like, what it means to have someone in your corner. Sarah's expression was serious. I'm not saying there's anything romantic, but there's something. And in 2 weeks, one way or another, this ends. Make sure you both know what happens after. Henry hadn't thought that far ahead. The board meeting had become the horizon line, everything beyond it, unclear and uncertain. I'll be careful, he promised. Sarah nodded and left, and Henry returned to find Amanda standing at the window looking out at the city lights. Can't sleep, he asked. Haven't been able to sleep since the stroke. Every time I close my eyes, I feel it happening again. The world tilting my body, betraying me, the terror of being trapped in my own skull. She turned to face him. You were there? You saw me at my weakest. Does that image ever leave you? Yes and no, Henry admitted. I see you scared, but I also see you fighting, gripping my hand, staying conscious through force of will. You think I saw weakness that night. I saw someone refusing to die. I was dying, but you didn't, because you're stubborn as hell, and because I was there. He joined her at the window. Sarah's right, you know. This ends in 2 weeks. Have you thought about what comes after? I've thought about nothing else. Amanda's reflection in the glass looked ghostly, uncertain. If we win, if we expose Wilson and Patterson, I'm still damaged goods. A CEO who had a stroke, who was targeted by her own deputy. The board will push me out. The shareholders will demand fresh leadership. Everything I built will slip away. So you rebuild, build something better. Is it that simple for you? just start over when everything falls apart. Henry thought about the year after Rachel died, the crushing grief, the bills, the nights when he'd sat in Oliver's room and wondered how he'd survive another day. No, it's the hardest thing in the world, but you do it anyway because the alternative is giving up, and giving up means they win. Amanda looked at him, really looked at him, and Henry saw the moment something shifted between them. Not romance, Sarah was wrong about that, but recognition. Two people who'd lost everything learning how to stand up again. "You're a good man, Henry Webb," she said. "I'm just a janitor who got lucky." "No, you're the man who saved my life and stayed to fight my battles. That's not luck, that's choice." Before he could respond, a crash echoed from the hallway. Both of them spun toward the sound, Henry's protective instincts flaring, but it was just Oliver standing in his pajamas, looking sheepish. "Sorry," Oliver said. "I was getting water and I knocked over the fancy vase thing." Amanda laughed, a real laugh, free and unguarded. "It's okay, sweetheart. That vase was hideous anyway." Oliver grinned and ran to Henry, who scooped him up despite his son getting too big for it. "Back to bed, buddy." "Can Amanda read me a story first?" Henry looked at Amanda, expecting her to decline, to say she was busy. Instead, she smiled and said, "I'd like that very much." They went to Oliver's room together, and Amanda read from the book on his nightstand something about dragons and knights that Oliver had read a dozen times. But she read it like it was new, doing voices for each character, making Oliver giggle. And watching her, Henry saw what Sarah had meant. Amanda was learning how to live again, how to be more than just the CEO, and somehow he and Oliver were part of that transformation. After Oliver fell asleep, they stood in the doorway together, watching him breathe in the peaceful rhythm of childhood. "Thank you for letting me do that," Amanda whispered. "Any time." They said goodnight, but Henry lay awake long after, thinking about choices and consequences, about invisible people and the lives they touched. Somewhere in this city, Wilson Hart and Marcus Patterson were planning their next move, and in 8 days everything would come to a head. But for now, in this moment, a stroke survivor and a widowed janitor and a 6-year-old boy were safe under the same roof, connected by circumstance and choice, building something that looked almost like family. It wouldn't last, Henry knew that, but Rachel had taught him to treasure the moments you had, because tomorrow was never guaranteed. He fell asleep thinking of her, hoping she'd be proud of the man he was becoming, the battles he was choosing to fight. In the morning, everything changed. Henry woke to the sound of retching. He was out of bed and running before he was fully conscious, his body moving on instinct. The sound came from Amanda's room. He found her in the bathroom, collapsed on the floor, vomiting violently. Her pupils were uneven again, her left side weak, her speech slurred when she tried to speak. "No," Henry breathed. "No, no, no, you're on the placebos. This shouldn't be happening." He pulled out his phone, calling Sarah with shaking hands. She answered on the first ring, already awake. "It's Amanda," Henry said. "She's having another episode. Stroke symptoms, same as before. I'm on my way. Don't move her. Keep her conscious." Henry knelt beside Amanda, cradling her head, checking her breathing. Her eyes found his, terrified and confused. She was trying to say something, her mouth forming words that wouldn't come. "Shh. Don't try to talk. Sarah's coming. You're going to be okay." But even as he said it, Henry's mind raced. If Amanda was on placebos, if Sarah had switched all her medications, then this wasn't Patterson's doing. This was something else, something they'd missed. Oliver appeared in the doorway, his face white with fear. "Daddy, is Amanda dying?" "No, buddy, she's sick, but we're helping her. Go wait in the living room." "Okay." Oliver didn't move, like Mommy was sick. The question hit Henry like a punch. "No, not like Mommy, I promise." Sarah arrived 12 minutes later, 12 minutes that felt like hours. She examined Amanda with clinical efficiency, taking vitals, checking pupils, asking questions Amanda couldn't answer. "It's not a stroke," Sarah said finally, "or not a typical one. Her symptoms are wrong. The progression's too fast. The presentation's off." She pulled out her medical kit, drawing blood. I need to test this, now. She worked in Amanda's kitchen using portable equipment Henry hadn't known existed. He stayed with Amanda, keeping her conscious, while Oliver sat on the sofa, clutching his stuffed elephant and trying to be brave. When Sarah emerged from the kitchen, her face was ashen. Poison, she said. Someone poisoned her. Henry felt the world tilt. That's impossible. We've been watching everything, every meal, every medication. It's in her system now, a neurotoxin designed to mimic stroke symptoms, fast-acting, usually fatal within hours. Sarah was already preparing an injection. I can counteract it, but Henry, this means they know. They know we switched the medications. They know she's onto them, and they tried to kill her anyway. Amanda made a sound, half sob, half rage. Henry held her hand as Sarah administered the antidote, watching color slowly return to her face, watching the symptoms ease. Who? Amanda managed after several minutes. How? That was the question. They'd been so careful. Sarah had switched the medications. Henry had been watching Patterson. Amanda had been playing her part perfectly. But someone had gotten to her anyway. Henry thought back through the past 24 hours. Amanda's schedule, her meals, her contacts. And then he remembered. The water, he said. Your assistant brought you that special water yesterday, the imported kind you like. Amanda's eyes widened. Jennifer, she's been with me for 8 years. Call her, Sarah said. Right now, see if she answers. Amanda's hands shook as she dialed. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then voicemail. They all looked at each other, the implications sinking in. Jennifer, the loyal assistant, part of Wilson's network. How deep did this go? How many people had been compromised? We can't stay here, Henry said. If Jennifer knows where you live, Wilson knows. Patterson knows. This place isn't safe anymore. Where do we go? Amanda asked, her voice still weak. Henry thought of the one place Wilson Hart would never think to look. The place invisible people disappeared to when they needed to hide. I know somewhere, he said. Somewhere they'll never find us, but we need to leave now, and we can't tell anyone where we're going. Sarah nodded. I'll cover for you. Say Amanda's in private treatment at an undisclosed facility. What about the board meeting? Amanda asked. It's in 7 days. Forget the board meeting, Henry said firmly. Staying alive is more important than exposing them. But even as he said it, he saw the refusal in Amanda's eyes. She'd spent 20 years building her empire. She wasn't going to let Wilson steal it now, poison or no poison. No, she said, her voice getting stronger. We finish this, but we finish it smart. Henry's right, we disappear, we hide, and in 7 days we come back with everything we need to bury them. She tried to stand and nearly collapsed. Henry caught her and she leaned against him, exhausted and furious and determined. 1 week, she said. Give me 1 week to heal, to plan, to prepare. Then we end this. Henry looked at Sarah, at Oliver, at the woman in his arms who refused to stay down, no matter how many times they tried to kill her. 1 week, he agreed. But we do it my way. We disappear so completely they'll think you're already dead. And so they ran, out of the penthouse into the pre-dawn darkness, leaving behind the life of power and privilege for the shadows where invisible people lived. It was time to show Wilson Hart and Marcus Patterson what happened when you underestimated a janitor, a doctor, and a CEO who refused to die. The real fight was just beginning. Henry drove them through Chicago's empty streets in Sarah's car, constantly checking the rear-view mirror for any sign they'd been followed. Amanda sat in the passenger seat, still weak from the poison, while Oliver dozed in the back, his elephant clutched tight. The city looked different at 5 in the morning, quieter, stripped of its polish, showing the bones underneath. Where are we going? Amanda asked, her voice hoarse. Bridgeport, my old neighborhood. Henry turned down a street lined with tired brownstones and corner stores covered in security grills. There's a building where I used to live before Rachel died. The super owes me a favor. Wilson knows where you used to live. He knows the address. He doesn't know the people. Henry pulled into an alley behind a 3-story walk-up that had seen better decades. Mrs. Chen, my neighbor who watches Oliver, her sister, owns this building. Rents rooms by the week, mostly to people who need to not be found. Cash only, no questions asked. Amanda looked at the graffitied walls, the overflowing dumpster, the broken streetlight casting everything in shadows. This was as far from her penthouse as Earth was from Mars. I know it's not what you're used to, Henry said quietly. It's perfect, Amanda said. No one would ever think to look for me here. Mrs. Chen's sister, a woman named Lynn who looked like she'd survived worse things than corporate conspiracies, answered Henry's knock with a baseball bat in hand. When she saw who it was, her expression softened. Henry Webb, heard you moved up in the world. Turns out the world has a way of knocking you back down. Lynn, I need a favor, a big one. Lynn's eyes moved from Henry to Amanda, taking in the expensive clothes, the obvious illness, the desperation. How big? 3 people, 1 week, absolute secrecy. People are trying to kill her. Lynn studied Amanda for a long moment, then she lowered the bat. 2nd floor back unit, $600 for the week. Cash. Henry pulled out the money part of the check Amanda had tried to give him weeks ago, which he'd kept for emergencies. This qualified. The apartment was small, maybe 400 square feet total. 1 bedroom, a bathroom with tile from the 70s, a kitchen that was more of a kitchenette. The furniture looked like it had been donated by 3 different people with no sense of color coordination. But it was clean, and the locks on the door were new and solid. I'll take it, Amanda said. Lynn handed Henry the keys. Nobody knows you're here. That's how it stays. After she left, Amanda sank onto the threadbare couch and looked around the space that would be home for the next week. Then unexpectedly she laughed. What? Henry asked. I spent my entire adult life climbing. Bigger offices, bigger apartments, bigger everything. And here I am, hiding in a 400-square-foot walk-up in Bridgeport, and I've never felt safer. She looked at him. That's insane, isn't it? Rachel used to say that safety isn't about the size of your walls. It's about who's standing guard at the door. And you're standing guard. Me, Oliver, Sarah, Lynn, Mrs. Chen, you've got a whole army of people Wilson Hart has never bothered to notice. Turns out being invisible has advantages. Oliver stirred from where Henry had laid him on the couch, rubbing his eyes. Are we home? For now, buddy. Oliver looked around the small space and shrugged with 6-year-old acceptance. Okay, can I have cereal? The normalcy of the question made Amanda laugh again, and Henry realized it was the first time he'd heard her laugh without the weight of the world on her shoulders. They settled into an unlikely routine over the next days. Sarah visited each morning to check Amanda's recovery, bringing supplies and updates from the outside world. Wilson had announced that Amanda was taking medical leave, that he was assuming temporary control as acting CEO. The board meeting had been moved up to five days instead of 7. Wilson was accelerating his timeline, sensing victory. He thinks you're dead or dying somewhere, Sarah reported on day 3. Jennifer told him the poison should have been fatal within 12 hours. He's already moving your belongings out of the office. Amanda's jaw clenched. Good. Let him get comfortable. Let him think he's won. But at night, when Oliver was asleep on the pull-out couch and Henry was reviewing the evidence they'd gathered, Amanda would sit by the window and stare at the city lights in the distance. Henry recognized that look. He'd worn it for months. After Rachel died, the look of someone trying to figure out who they were when everything they'd built was stripped away. You're not your job, he said one night sitting beside her. You know that, right? Intellectually, yes. Emotionally. Amanda shook her head. I've been CEO for 12 years. Before that, I clawed my way up from nothing. My dad was a mechanic. My mom cleaned houses. I built Ashford Tower from the ground up. That company is my identity. No, it's what you did, not who you are. Then who am I? Henry thought about it. You're the woman who thanked her janitor, who invited a stranger and his son to lunch. Who's brave enough to fight a conspiracy even when they keep trying to kill you? Who reads dragon stories to 6-year-olds like it's the most important thing in the world? He paused. You're Amanda. That's enough. She turned to look at him, and in the dim light from the street, she looked younger, more uncertain. What happens after? If we win, if we survive, what then? I don't know. Nobody does. You just take the next step and figure it out as you go. Is that what you did after Rachel? Henry nodded. Every single day. Some days the next step was just getting out of bed. Some days it was making Oliver breakfast without crying. Eventually the steps got easier, but it took time. Do you still miss her? Every day, but it's different now. It doesn't hurt as much. Mostly, I just wish she could see Oliver growing up, see the person he's becoming. He smiled. She'd probably have notes on my parenting. She'd be proud, Amanda said firmly. Any fool can see that. They sat in comfortable silence, two people learning how to breathe again after nearly drowning. On day 4, Henry made a decision. They had evidence, Patterson's files, the ledger, the recordings, the poison in Amanda's blood work. But they needed one more thing. They needed Patterson or Wilson to confess on record undeniably in a way that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I'm going back to Ashford Tower tonight, he told Amanda and Sarah, for my regular shift. Absolutely not, Amanda said immediately. They tried to poison me. What do you think they'll do if they catch you? They won't catch me. I'm just the janitor, remember? And besides, Wilson thinks you're dying in some hospital somewhere. He won't be looking for me. Henry pulled out his phone. I'm going to wear a wire, real one this time, not just my phone. Sarah, can you get me something professional? I can get you something that would make the FBI jealous, Sarah said. But Henry, if they find it, they won't. People like Wilson don't look at people like me. We're scenery. There was no bitterness in his voice, just acknowledgement of a truth he'd learned to use as a weapon. Amanda grabbed his hand. I can't ask you to do this. You're not asking. I'm choosing. Henry squeezed back. Rachel taught me that sometimes you have to walk into the fire because nobody else will. This is my fire. Oliver, who'd been playing with his action figures in the corner, looked up. Are you being a superhero again, Daddy? Something like that, Ollie. Be careful. Superheroes are supposed to come home. The simple request made Henry's chest tight. He knelt down and pulled Oliver into a hug. I promise, buddy, I always come home. That night, Sarah fitted him with a wire so sophisticated it was barely detectable, a button on his uniform shirt that was actually a microphone, a battery pack that looked like his work phone. She also gave him something else, a small device that looked like a pen. Emergency beacon, she explained. You press the top 3 times fast, and it sends your GPS location to me and to a contact I have at the FBI. Use it only if you're in immediate danger. You have a contact at the FBI. Rachel and I testified in a Medicare fraud case years ago, made some friends. Sarah's expression was serious. Please don't make me use this connection to identify your body. I'll do my best. Amanda walked him to the door, and for a moment they just stood there, looking at each other. Then she hugged him, holding tight. Come back, she whispered. Oliver needs you, and I need you. Henry had no words for the complexity of what he felt, so he just nodded and left before he could change his mind. Ashford Tower looked the same as always, gleaming glass and steel, a monument to power and money. Henry badged in with his custodial ID, nodded to the night security guard, who barely looked at him, and took the service elevator up to the executive floors. The building felt different knowing what he knew. Now, every corner could hide a threat. Every shadow could conceal danger. But Henry had spent 18 months learning to function, while terrified single parenthood was excellent training for covert operations. He started his rounds on the 40th floor, working his way down. Most of the offices were empty, the exec staff long gone home. But on the 35th floor, Patterson's office light was on. Henry pushed his cart closer, his heart hammering. Through the frosted glass, he could see 2 figures, Patterson and someone else. The voices were muffled but heated. He moved to the door, positioning himself to dust the frame, and the voices became clearer. "Can't believe you let her slip away." That was Wilson, his voice tight with fury. "You said the poison was foolproof. It should have been. The dose was fatal. Jennifer confirmed she drank the entire bottle of water. And yet Amanda Blackwell's penthouse is empty. Her car is gone and she's vanished, along with that damn janitor and his kid." Henry kept dusting, keeping his movements steady, his breathing calm. The microphone in his button was recording everything. "Maybe she's dead," Patterson said. "Maybe she died somewhere privately and they're covering it up until after the board meeting. Or maybe she knows. Maybe Webb figured it out and they're planning something." Wilson's footsteps paced. "I want them found. All three of them. I don't care what it costs." "Wilson, we're talking about killing a child's father. Possibly the child too, if he's witnessed. I'm talking about protecting a $12 million investment and the CEO position of a Fortune 500 company." Wilson's voice cracked like a whip. "We've killed 12 people to get here, Marcus." 12, what's 3 more? Henry's hand stilled on the doorframe. There it was, the confession. Undeniable, recorded perfect. "You said there'd be no more killing after Amanda," Patterson said, and he sounded old-tired. "You said this was the last one." "I say a lot of things. Now find them. Use whatever resources you need. I want Webb and his brat brought to me, and I want to know where Amanda is. We have 2 days until the board meeting. I need this cleaned up before then." Henry started to back away to retreat before they saw him, but his cartwheel caught on the carpet. The squeak was soft, but in the quiet hallway, it might as well have been a gunshot. The conversation inside stopped. "What was that?" Wilson said. Henry didn't wait to hear more. He abandoned the cart and walked quickly toward the service elevator, forcing himself not to run, to maintain the casual pace of a janitor finishing his shift. Behind him, Patterson's door opened. "Hey, you there." Henry kept walking, hit the elevator call button. The numbers above it showed the car was on the 23rd floor, too slow. He could hear footsteps behind him getting closer. He pivoted, heading for the stairs, instead pushing through the heavy door into the concrete stairwell. Above him, the door on 36 opened, someone else coming down. Below, more footsteps coming up. They'd called security. Henry did the only thing he could think of. He pressed the emergency beacon 3 times, then tucked himself into the space between the stairs and the wall on the landing, making himself as small as possible. It was a child's hiding place, stupid and obvious, but he was out of options. The footsteps thundered past him. Security guards, by the sound of their radios. They were searching floors below, assuming he'd gone down. Henry waited until the stairwell was quiet, then emerged and climbed instead, going up to the 40th floor. He slipped out into the hallway, found an empty conference room, and locked himself inside. His phone buzzed. "Sarah, got your signal. FBI is 8 minutes out. Can you hold?" Henry texted back, "In conference room 40B. They're searching for me. Stay hidden. Help is coming." 8 minutes had never felt so long. Henry crouched behind a desk, listening to the sounds of the search below him. Radios crackling, voices calling, doors opening and closing. Then closer than he expected, Wilson's voice in the hallway. "Check every room on this floor. He couldn't have gone far." Henry's breath caught. The conference room door handle rattled. Locked, but that wouldn't stop them for long. He looked around desperately for another option. The window, 40 floors up, no ledge, nowhere to go. Under the desk, they'd check there first. The ventilation grate in the ceiling caught his eye. It was small, probably too small, but it was something. Henry dragged a chair over as quietly as possible, climbed up and pushed at the grate. It came loose, easier than expected. Someone had been up here before for maintenance. He hauled himself up into the duct. Just as the door burst open, Wilson and 2 security guards flooded into the room. "Clear," one guard said. "Check the desk, check the closet, check everywhere." Wilson's voice was tight with panic. Henry held his breath in the dark, cramped space above them, the metal cold against his skin. Through the grate, he could see Wilson pacing his phone to his ear. Jennifer, I need you to access Amanda's financial records. Find any property she might own, any place she might hide, and get me everything on Henry Webb family, friends, associates, everyone he's ever known. A pause, then, I don't care if it's illegal. Do it. Wilson hung up and turned to the guards. Seal the building. Nobody leaves until we find him. And get Patterson up here. We need to contain this now. The guards left. Wilson stood alone in the conference room, and Henry saw something he hadn't expected: fear. Real, genuine fear in the eyes of a man who'd killed 12 people to get power. You made a mistake, Webb, Wilson said to the empty room. Coming back here, thinking you could expose us. You have no idea what you're dealing with, no idea what I'm capable of. Henry almost responded, almost told him that actually he knew exactly what Wilson was capable of. It was all recorded, all documented, all ready to bury him. But he stayed silent, waiting. Finally, Wilson left, and Henry waited another 2 minutes before carefully lowering himself back into the room. He had to get out, had to get this recording to the FBI before Wilson found him. He crept to the door, peered out. The hallway was empty for the moment. He could hear activity on the lower floors, the search continuing. The service elevator would be watched. The main elevators too, probably. But there was one more option, the executive elevator that ran directly from the 40th floor to the parking garage. Henry moved quickly, quietly, his janitor's knowledge of the building serving him well. He knew which floorboards creaked, which hallways had camera coverage, which turns to take. He was almost to the executive elevator when he heard it. There! A guard at the end of the hallway. Henry ran, abandoning stealth, and slammed his hand on the elevator call button. The doors opened immediately, a miracle, and he threw himself inside just as the guard rounded the corner. Stop security. But Henry had already hit the button for the garage, and the doors were sliding closed. Through the narrowing gap, he saw the guard running, saw him speak into his radio, saw Wilson appear behind him. The doors closed. The elevator descended, and Henry leaned against the wall, shaking. His phone buzzed. Sarah, FBI is at the main entrance. Get to them now. But when the elevator doors opened in the parking garage, it wasn't FBI waiting for him. It was Patterson holding a syringe filled with something that definitely wasn't medicine. Hello, Henry, Patterson said calmly. I'm afraid you've become a problem that needs solving. Henry backed up, but there was nowhere to go. The elevator behind him, Patterson ahead, concrete walls on both sides. He was trapped. Whatever Wilson's paying you, Henry said, it's not worth this. You're a doctor. You took an oath. I took an oath to a system that chewed me up and spit me out, Patterson said. 40 years of saving lives, and what did I get? Medical debt, malpractice insurance that cost more than I made administrators who treated me like a profit center. Wilson offered me a way out, a way to finally get what I deserved. By killing people, by correcting imbalances. Those 12 people I helped remove, they were all obstacles to better people, more deserving people. I was just accelerating natural selection. He moved closer, and Henry's hand went to the emergency beacon in his pocket. But even as his fingers closed around it, he knew pressing it wouldn't help. The FBI was at the main entrance, floors and walls away. By the time they got here, whatever was in that syringe would have already done its work. Rachel wouldn't want you to do this, Henry said desperately. She believed in you, in all doctors. She thought you were heroes. Patterson's expression flickered. You don't get to use her name. Why not? She was my wife. She died trying to save people like the ones you've killed. Don't you think she'd be ashamed of what you've become? I said don't use her name. Patterson lunged forward with the syringe. Henry dodged barely, and the needle scraped his arm but didn't penetrate. He shoved Patterson hard, and the older man stumbled backward. The syringe clattered to the concrete floor. They both dove for it. Henry got there first, his fingers closing around the plastic body, but Patterson was on him, hands grabbing, trying to wrench it away. They grappled, rolling on the oil-stained concrete, and Henry felt the desperation of a man fighting not just for his own life, but for Oliver's future, for Amanda's justice, for Rachel's memory. The syringe was between them, the needle pointing up. Patterson's weight was on top of Henry, pressing down, trying to force the needle into Henry's neck. Henry's arms shook with the effort of holding him back. "Just let go," Patterson gasped. "Let go and it'll be over quick. Your son won't even know you suffered." At the mention of Oliver, something fierce and primal surged in Henry. He bucked hard, throwing Patterson's weight to the side, and in the chaos of motion, the syringe plunged down into Patterson's thigh. The doctor's eyes went wide. He scrambled back, looking down at the needle buried in his leg, at the plunger fully depressed. "No, no, no, no." He pulled it out, but the damage was done. Whatever poison he'd prepared for Henry was now in his own bloodstream. "What was it?" Henry asked, breathing hard. "What was in the syringe?" Patterson's hands were already shaking. "Tetrodotoxin, pufferfish poison, causes paralysis, respiratory failure. Looks like natural death if you don't know to test for it." His voice was getting weaker. "There's no antidote. I'm dead in 5 minutes." Henry should have felt triumph, justice. But all he felt was tired and sad, watching a man who'd taken an oath to heal dying by his own poison. "I'm sorry," Henry said. "Don't be." Patterson slumped against a concrete pillar. "I was already dead. The moment I agreed to Wilson's first job, I just didn't know it yet." He looked at Henry with fading eyes. "The files, in my office safe. Everything's documented. 12 victims, all the payments, all the proof you need. Use it, stop him." "I will." "And Henry, Rachel, she'd be proud of you, proud of the man you became without her." Patterson's breathing was labored now, his skin graying. Tell them I'm sorry. For all of them." Then he slumped forward and was still. Henry sat on the concrete floor next to the body of a man who'd killed 12 people and himself, and he felt the weight of everything that had happened settle on his shoulders. But he didn't have time to process it. The FBI was in the building. Wilson was still free. And somewhere Amanda and Oliver were waiting for him to come home. He stood up, took a photo of Patterson's body with his phone for evidence, and walked toward the garage entrance where he could hear sirens approaching. It was time to finish this. The FBI agents who met Henry in the parking garage were professionals, all business and no dramatics. The lead agent, a woman named Torres with sharp eyes and graying hair, took one look at Patterson's body and immediately called for backup and crime scene investigators. "I need you to come with me, Mr. Webb," she said, not unkindly. "We have a lot to discuss." "Wilson Hart is still in the building," Henry said. "He's on the 40th floor, probably destroying evidence right now." Torres spoke into her radio, and within seconds Henry heard the confirmation that agents were moving to secure Wilson. She turned back to Henry. "Dr. Chen said you have recordings, evidence of conspiracy to commit murder." Henry pulled out the wire Sarah had given him, his hands still shaking from the adrenaline. "Everything's on here. Wilson confessing to 12 murders. Patterson admitting to falsifying medical records, all of it." Torres took the device with the reverence it deserved. "Mr. Webb, do you understand what you've done tonight? You've handed us one of the biggest medical fraud and conspiracy cases in Chicago history. I just wanted to save Amanda Blackwell's life. You did that, and you're going to save a lot of other lives too." Torres gestured to an agent. "Get Mr. Webb somewhere safe and comfortable. We're going to need his full statement." They took Henry to a conference room on the 2nd floor. Ironic that he'd cleaned this very room 100 times and never imagined he'd sit in it being debriefed by the FBI. For 3 hours he told them everything. About finding Amanda, about Patterson's files, about the poison, about Wilson's threats against Oliver. He showed them the photographs on his phone, gave them the location of Patterson's safe, provided every detail he could remember. Through the window he watched the sun rise over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that Rachel would have loved. She'd always said sunrise was nature's way of promising that no matter how dark the night, morning always came. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Saw the news. Are you okay? Henry texted back, alive. FBI has everything. Is she safe? She's climbing the walls, wanting to know if you're all right. Call when you can. Agent Torres returned with coffee and what looked like the beginning of a smile. We found the safe. You weren't kidding about the documentation. Patterson kept records on everything, dates, doses, payments, wire transfers. It's a prosecutor's dream. What about Wilson? In custody. He lawyered up immediately, but it won't help him. The recordings you got are ironclad. Combined with Patterson's records and the physical evidence. She paused. Mr. Webb Patterson died from tetrodotoxin poisoning, the same substance we found in Ms. Blackwell's blood work. Are you going to tell me how that happened? Henry met her eyes steadily. He tried to inject me with it. We struggled. The needle ended up in his leg instead. It was self-defense. Torres studied him for a long moment. The crime scene investigators confirmed your account. There are no charges being filed against you. Legally, you're clear. She leaned forward. But between you and me, you did the world a favor. Patterson was a monster who wore a white coat. He was also a man who got lost, Henry said quietly, who made terrible choices and paid for them. I'm not going to celebrate his death. That's what makes you different from people like Wilson Hart, Torres said. You still see the humanity in everyone. She stood. You're free to go. We'll need you to testify when this goes to trial, but for now, go home. See your son. Tell Ms. Blackwell she can come out of hiding. Henry stood on shaky legs. What happens next? Next, we finish building the case. We track down every victim in Patterson's ledger and get justice for their families. We make sure Wilson Hart and everyone in his network spends the rest of their lives in prison. Torres walked him to the door. And you, Mr. Webb, you go back to being a janitor, or whatever else you want to be. You've earned it. But as Henry walked out of Ashford Tower into the morning light, he knew he'd never be just a janitor again. He'd crossed a line, entered a fight, and emerged, changed. The invisibility that had protected him his whole life was gone, burned away in the fire of the past weeks. His phone rang. Amanda. He answered before the second ring. Henry! Oh God, Henry, are you okay? Sarah told me to wait, but I couldn't. I saw the news about Patterson and the FBI at the tower, and I thought. Her voice broke. I'm okay. I'm on my way to you now. They're really arrested Wilson and Patterson. Patterson's dead. Wilson's in custody. It's over, Amanda. We won. The silence on the other end was heavy with emotion. Then quietly, come home. Please just come home. Home. The words settled over Henry like a warm blanket. A week ago, home had been his and Oliver's apartment in Bridgeport, then briefly the penthouse, then the safe house. But hearing Amanda say it, hearing the need and relief in her voice, he realized home had become something else entirely, something that wasn't about a place at all. When he walked into the small apartment an hour later, Oliver launched himself at Henry with enough force to nearly knock him over. Daddy, you came back. You came back like you promised. Henry held his son tight, breathing in the familiar scent of his shampoo, feeling the solid reality of him. I always come back, buddy, always. Amanda stood by the window, and when Oliver finally released Henry, she crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. She was shaking, or maybe he was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. Don't ever do that again, she whispered against his shoulder. Don't ever make me think I might lose you. I won't, I promise. Henry pulled back to look at her. How are you feeling? The poison. Sarah's been monitoring me. I'm okay. Weak still, but okay. Amanda touched his face gently like she was making sure he was real. You could have died tonight, Henry. For me, for my company. Not for your company, for you. There's a difference. Sarah arrived minutes later with groceries, news, and an update from her FBI contact. It's chaos, she reported, unpacking food onto the small counter. The stories everywhere. CEO targeted in murder conspiracy. Janitor hero exposes medical fraud ring. 12 victims of Doctor's deadly plot. You're famous, Henry. I don't want to be famous. I want to be invisible again. Too late for that, Sarah said, but not unkindly. The board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. They want Amanda to address what happened, confirm she's alive and capable of returning. Amanda's expression hardened with determination. Good, let them see exactly how capable I am. Are you sure you're ready? Henry asked. It's only been a week since the poisoning. I'm sure this is my company. Wilson tried to steal it by killing me. I'll be damned if I let him win by hiding. She turned to Sarah. Can you get me out of here without anyone seeing I need to go home, get cleaned up, prepare? I can do better than that, Sarah said. I can get the FBI to escort you. Make it official, make it safe, make it a statement. And so, 24 hours after Henry had recorded Wilson's confession, Amanda Blackwell walked into Ashford Tower flanked by FBI agents, looking every inch the CEO who'd built an empire from nothing. The lobby erupted in whispers and stares. Security guards straightened. Executive assistants pulled out their phones. Henry and Oliver came with her not as servants or shadows, but as honored guests. Amanda had insisted, and when the board members raised eyebrows at the janitor and his child attending a closed-door executive meeting, she'd simply said, Henry Webb saved my life twice and brought down a conspiracy that would have destroyed this company. He's earned the right to be here. The boardroom on the 45th floor was all glass and chrome with a view of Chicago that made Oliver press his nose to the window in wonder. 15 board members sat around the table, their expressions ranging from shock to relief to calculation. Amanda took her seat at the head of the table, Wilson's empty chair beside her, a reminder of betrayal. Henry and Oliver sat against the wall, observers to history being made. Ladies and gentlemen, Amanda began, her voice steady despite everything. I'm sure you've seen the news. What you may not know is the full extent of the conspiracy against me, against this company, and against 12 other victims over the past 3 years. She laid it out methodically, using the evidence Henry had gathered, the recordings, the documents from Patterson's safe. She named names, showed proof, connected dots. The board members' faces grew paler with each revelation. Wilson Hart, my deputy CEO, and your colleague orchestrated a murder-for-hire scheme using Dr. Marcus Patterson as the weapon, Amanda said. He did this to take control of this company. He did this because he valued power more than human life. And he almost succeeded because I was too focused on quarterly reports to notice what was happening in my own organization. Amanda, one board member began, surely you can't blame yourself. I don't blame myself for Wilson's actions, but I do take responsibility for creating a culture where people felt invisible, where a janitor could notice symptoms my entire executive team missed because they were too busy looking up instead of around. She gestured to Henry. Henry Webb, a man most of you have never bothered to learn the name of, saved this company, not me, him. Henry felt every eye in the room turn to him. He wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor, but Oliver squeezed his hand, and he remembered why he was here, to show his son that invisible people mattered, that janitors could be heroes too. The FBI has recommended a complete audit of all company practices, Amanda continued. I support that recommendation. I also propose the creation of an employee oversight committee with representatives from every level of this organization, including custodial and service workers. We're going to build a company where everyone is seen, everyone matters, and nobody is invisible. The meeting lasted 3 hours. There were questions, debates, concerns about publicity and stock prices and shareholder confidence. But in the end, the board voted unanimously to reinstate Amanda as CEO and to support her proposed reforms. As they filed out, several board members stopped to shake Henry's hand, to thank him, to acknowledge him in ways they never had before. It felt strange and uncomfortable, and also a little bit right. Outside, waiting for Sarah to pick them up, Oliver tugged on Henry's sleeve. Daddy, those people all knew your name. Yeah, buddy, they did. Does that mean you're not invisible anymore? Henry thought about it. I guess it does. Good, Oliver said firmly. I like it when people see you, because you're the best daddy in the world, and everyone should know. Amanda, standing nearby, smiled at them both. Out of the mouths of babes, she said softly. The next weeks were a blur of depositions, interviews, and media attention Henry never wanted. The story captivated the nation, the janitor who saved the CEO, the conspiracy that nearly succeeded the doctor who died by his own poison. News vans camped outside Henry's apartment. Reporters called at all hours. Oliver's school had to hire extra security. Through it all, Amanda stood beside them. She gave interviews crediting Henry. She hired lawyers to protect his privacy. She made sure he and Oliver were safe when the spotlight became too bright. You don't have to do this, Henry told her one evening, exhausted from another day of legal proceedings. Yes, I do. You saved my life multiple times. The least I can do is make sure yours isn't destroyed by the aftermath. But the truth was, both their lives had already been destroyed. The old lives, the old identities, those were gone. What remained was the question of what to build from the ruins. The answer came from an unexpected place. Sarah visited Henry's apartment one night carrying a box of Rachel's belongings that had been in storage. I thought you might want these, she said, for Oliver when he's older. Inside were Rachel's medical journals, her diplomas, her notes from conferences and lectures, and at the bottom a sketchbook filled with drawings. Henry had forgotten Rachel drew. She'd done it to decompress after difficult shifts. Quick sketches of patients, colleagues, the view from the hospital cafeteria. Oliver looked through the sketchbook with wonder. Mommy drew pictures. She did. She said art helped her understand things words couldn't explain. That night, watching Oliver try to copy his mother's drawings, Henry had an idea. He called Amanda. What are you doing with your life now after everything? I don't know, she admitted. The board wants me to stay on as CEO, but Henry, I don't want to. I almost died for that job, and now I can't remember why it mattered so much. What if we did something else? Something that mattered in a different way? Like what? Art therapy. For stroke survivors, using creativity to help people heal, rebuild, express what they've lost. The idea was forming as he spoke. Rachel believed in it. You've lived through it. I've watched Oliver process his grief through drawing. What if we created a space for that studio, a program, something real? The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Henry thought she'd hung up. Then, Henry Webb, are you asking me to start a non-profit with you? I'm asking if you want to build something that saves lives in a different way, not through medicine or business, through connection and creativity and showing people they're not alone. Yes, Amanda said immediately. Yes, I want exactly that. A year later, the Rachel Webb Art Therapy Studio opened in a converted warehouse in Pilsen. It was nothing fancy, exposed brick paint-splattered floors, large windows that let in natural light. But it was theirs, built with Amanda's money and Henry's vision and the blessing of Sarah, who'd helped recruit therapists and medical advisors. Every Friday afternoon, stroke survivors gathered to paint, draw, sculpt, and create. They shared stories, tears, laughter, and slow, hard-won victories. Some were young like Amanda, their lives interrupted mid-stride. Others were elderly, fighting to reclaim stolen years. All of them were learning the same lesson, that healing wasn't about returning to who you were before, but discovering who you could become after. Henry ran the studio while Oliver was in school, greeting participants, setting up supplies, facilitating connections. He wasn't invisible here. He was essential, the heart of a community built on second chances. And every Friday at 3 p.m., a black sedan pulled up across the street. Amanda would sit inside, watching through the window, as survivors created beauty from trauma. Sometimes she'd come in, pick up a brush, and paint alongside them. More often, she just watched and remembered. She painted too in her own time, not in the studio, but at home in the penthouse she'd kept but rarely used. She painted Henry and Oliver always surrounded by light, golden light, silver light that seemed to emanate from them rather than fall upon them. The paintings were technically imperfect but emotionally true, capturing something about the people who'd saved her that words never could. She left them for Henry to find, propped against the studio door delivered by Sarah, slipped into his mailbox. He never acknowledged receiving them, never thanked her. Instead, he painted back. Simple watercolors showing Amanda as he saw her, not as a CEO or stroke survivor, but as a woman learning to laugh again, reading dragon stories to a 6-year-old, standing at a window watching a city that no longer owned her. The paintings went back and forth between them, a conversation in color and form that said everything they couldn't speak aloud. This wasn't romance, both of them knew that. It was something deeper and stranger. Two people who'd saved each other, learning to exist in the world they'd almost lost. On a Friday in late October, Henry was cleaning up the studio after the last participant had left when Amanda walked in. Not watching from across the street, but actually inside, paint on her hands from the session she'd finally joined. "I've been thinking," she said without preamble, "about what happens next for both of us." "What have you been thinking?" "That we saved each other once. Maybe we're supposed to keep doing it." Amanda sat on one of the paint-splattered stools, not in the dramatic way, just in the everyday way, showing up, being present, reminding each other what matters. "We already do that," Henry said. "I know, I just wanted to say it out loud, to acknowledge it." She looked around the studio at the artwork covering the walls, pieces by survivors who'd found their voices again through color and line. "Rachel would love this place." "I think so too." "She'd be proud of you, Henry, of who you became, of how you're using what she taught you." "I hope so," Henry said. "I like to think she's watching sometimes, that she sees Oliver growing up kind and brave, that she knows I'm okay." "You're more than okay. You're extraordinary." Amanda stood, moving to one of the windows. "Do you remember what you told me that first night in the hospital? I told you a lot of things. You said I was going to be okay, that you were going to save my life." She turned to face him. "You did, Henry. Over and over again. Not just from the stroke or the poison, from the emptiness, from the isolation, from the belief that power and success were the same as being alive." "You saved me too," Henry said. "You saw me when I'd gotten used to being invisible. You reminded me I could be more than just someone who cleaned up after other people." They stood in the fading afternoon light, two people connected by crisis and choice, by paintings exchanged and Friday afternoons watching each other heal. "What do you think Rachel would say if she could see us now?" Amanda asked. Henry smiled, remembering his wife's directness, her fierce belief in living fully. "She'd probably tell us to stop being so serious, to laugh more, to remember that surviving isn't the same as living." "Then let's live," Amanda said. "Let's build this studio into something amazing. Let's help people heal. Let's show Oliver what it means to create something good from something terrible." She paused. "Let's keep painting each other." "Deal," Henry said. Outside, the October sun cast long shadows across the studio floor. In a few hours, Oliver would burst through the door with stories about his day, demanding dinner and attention and the simple rituals of normalcy. Amanda would probably stay sharing pizza on paint-splattered chairs, listening to a 6-year-old explain the complex politics of second grade. It wasn't the life Henry had imagined when he'd pushed that mop cart past a conference room and seen a woman collapsing. It wasn't the empire Amanda had spent 20 years building, but it was real, and it was theirs, and it was enough. Every Friday they showed up for each other. Every Friday survivors created beauty from trauma. Every Friday invisible people were seen, broken people were valued, and the janitor who'd saved the CEO's life remembered why Rachel had taught him to notice the signs everyone else ignored. Some lives are saved once in a moment of crisis and courage. But some lives are saved forever in the quiet accumulation of Fridays and paintings and shared purpose. Henry Webb had learned the difference. And in learning it, he'd discovered what Rachel had known all along, that the most important work isn't done in boardrooms or hospitals or places of power. It's done in the small moments, the noticed moments, the moments when someone finally sees you and you see them back, and together you remember what it means to be human. The studio lights flickered on as darkness fell. Through the window, the city sparkled with 1,000 other lives being lived. And inside, a janitor and a CEO stood side by side, surrounded by the art of survival, connected by grace, learning every day how to turn trauma into beauty and isolation into community. The stroke had nearly ended Amanda's life. The conspiracy had tried to finish the job. But in the end, what saved her wasn't medicine or money or power. It was a man who noticed when everyone else looked away. A man who'd learned from love and loss that every life mattered, even the invisible ones, especially the invisible ones. And that was a lesson worth living for.